regularly scheduled meeting of May 26th, the LAFCO meeting, and if you'll all join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will start with introduction of commissions and staff, and we will start with the public member over here, Lane.
Yes, I'm Ken Lane, public member.
Richard O'Brien, city member.
Terry Withrow, county member.
Amy Bublak, city member.
Vito Chiesa, county member.
Bill Barry Hills, public member alternate.
Javier Lopez, alternate member.
Javier Camarena, Assistant Executive Officer.
Sarah Lytle Penny, Executive Officer.
Bob Taro, LAFCO Council.
Jennifer Vieira, Commission Clerk.
Outstanding. Welcome all. Okay, we will move on to public comment, and this period is for items that are not on the regular agenda, and no action will be taken. Are there any people who did not fill out a card but would wish to speak at this time? If not, we will close that and move on to approval of minutes. Is there a motion to accept April 18th, 2021 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. It passes unanimous. Correspondence.
There are no other additional items of correspondence other than what's on the agenda.
Great, thank you so much. Declaration of conflicts and/or disqualifications. Hearing and seeing none, moving on to consent items. There is one, item. Is anyone here wishing to speak regarding this consent item, the sphere of influence for Normal Way? If not, then is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And against, say nay. Passes unanimous. Public hearings. We'll start with item 7A. It's Lodi Whitmore change of organization to the city of Modesto.
Good evening, Commissioners. Javier Camarena with LAFCO. The item being discussed this evening is LAFCO application number 2021-02, the Lodi Whitmore change of organization to the city of Modesto. The proposed project is a request to annex approximately 33 acres made up of two parcels to the city of Modesto in order to accommodate new industrial development within the city. The project site is located at the northeast corner of Crow's Landing Road and Whitmore Avenue, in that general area, within an unincorporated island. The territory is surrounded by industrial uses to the north, east, and south, and commercial along Crow's Landing Road, and some single-family subdivisions further west. The entire area is zoned industrial in the Stanislaus County zoning ordinance, is designated industrial in the general plan, and has been pre-zoned as industrial in the city of Modesto. Government code requires consideration of several factors when evaluating a change of organization. These factors can be found on pages 3 through 6 of the staff report. Part of the factors considered requires an analysis of community services for the territory. The following table shows the different types of services being provided in the area, who the current service provider is, and after annexation. So according to the plan for services, essential government services including law enforcement, water, sewer, and roads will be provided by the city of Modesto. The site will remain in the Industrial Fire Protection District, Modesto City School District, and the Eastside Mosquito Abatement District. And the city has indicated that it is able to provide services to the territory. So the key item to be discussed this evening deals with the unincorporated island. The proposed annexation territory represents 33 acres of a larger 91-acre island here in this location. State law and LAFCO policies encourage the elimination of county islands in order to improve agency boundaries and eliminate duplication of services. So, excuse me 1 minute. So during the city's initial referral of the annexation, LAFCO staff provided a comment letter to the city of Modesto dated October 30th, 2020, requesting that the proposal be amended to include the entire unincorporated area into the proposal. This was requested in order to be consistent with city and county goals, plans, and agreements. And that letter is attached to the staff report as Exhibit F. Staff also received a letter from Stanislaus County dated April 8th, 2021, also attached to the staff report. That letter requests that the annexation proposal either be amended to include the entire island area or be continued to allow additional time for the city and county to develop a plan and agreement for annexation of the entire island. The letter also points out the goals of the city, county, and LAFCO to eliminate unincorporated islands in the Modesto area. Policy 20 of LAFCO's Policies and Procedures states that the Commission shall consider the following factors to determine logical boundaries. The first, that the Commission encourages logical boundaries which do not create islands and would eliminate existing islands, corridors, or other distortion of existing boundaries. And second, proposals which are orderly and will either improve or maintain the agency's logical boundary are encouraged. Annexation applications are typically triggered by new development or a request for city services. The current request involves the last properties with development potential in the island. Most of the island is already developed with curb, gutter, and sidewalk and being served with served with sewer and water by the city. Yet the area is still unincorporated. The possibility of development-initiated annexation in the future and in order to eliminate the remaining island is virtually eliminated with this proposal. And there is no guarantee that the city will annex the area in the future. Modesto's policies require that all public infrastructure be improved prior to annexation. In considering the remaining unincorporated island, the city is concerned about unimproved portions of the island, including a roadway section along Whitmore Avenue. That area has not been improved up to city standards. I don't know if you could see my cursor up on your screen. Well, right there near the corner of Crow's Landing and Whitmore, on the northern side of Whitmore Avenue, that you could see from the aerial that it's unimproved. Stanislaus County has indicated that the cost estimates to improve the remaining portions of the island range from $2 million to $5 million. City and county staff have discussed the proposal, costs, and concerns related to the island. However, no plans or agreement have been made. Pursuant to government code, the Commission can require that an entire unincorporated island be included in the annexation proposal. This can be completed by one of two ways. The first is by adding a condition requiring an additional annexation application be submitted prior to recordation of the current proposal. And the second would be to deny the proposal in its current form with the expectation that the city return with an application for the entire island. Staff has listed some alternatives for the Commission in the staff report. The first alternative listed as option 1A is to approve the project as proposed and annex the 33 acres of the 91-acre island. Option 1B would be to conditionally approve the proposed annexation, requiring the city apply for annexation of the remaining unincorporated area prior to recordation of the current proposal. This option will provide assurance that the city would return to the Commission in a timely manner with an application for the remainder of the island. However, it could also delay the recordation of the current proposal and make it dependent on city and county agreements on improvements. This option would also provide property owners within the unincorporated area an opportunity to favor annexation or protest against it. Option 2, the next option listed, option 2, which would be to deny the project. Per government code, denial of the project will require the city to wait 1 year to reapply for a similar annexation. However, should the commission decide to deny the proposal without prejudice, the city could return with the revised application, including the unincorporated territory, as soon as the city is willing to do so. And the third option would be to continue the project to gather more information or provide the city and county additional time to draft an agreement addressing the island. If an agreement cannot be met in a reasonable time frame, the commission will be asked to act on the proposal in its current form. Staff's recommendation can be found on page 8 of the staff report, which is to conditionally approve the proposal and require that the city submit a completed application for the remainder of the island. Staff has prepared Resolution 2021-09, Option 1B, and is attached to the staff report. Approval of the resolution would find the proposal consistent with state law and LAFCO policies and procedures, certify that the commission has considered the environmental documentation, and waive the protest proceedings. Should the commission approve the proposal as requested, staff has also included a resolution for option 1A, and that is attached to the staff report. That concludes my presentation, and staff is available for questions.
Questions for staff?
I have a couple of questions for staff. On the proposed annexation site, the business going on in has already submitted a substantial amount of money set aside for this project. Any delay may lose that opportunity, correct?
That'd probably be a question better handled by somebody in the audience. That
Okay,
information was not provided to us with the
All right.
application.
Anytime a business applies for an application of a business license or for building sites, they put up a lot of money. I know you're driving towards, taking the entire annexation. And although I see the reason for elimination of the island, this is infill project. And this infill project will benefit that region. And it also may spur additional growth along. Now, you say that there's streets and sidewalks. Have you driven in that area?
Not yet.
Yes.
Have you seen the streets and the sidewalks?
Yes, and they're of a quality that would probably be expected in an unincorporated area. I think it is surprising that there are sidewalks in a large portion of that area that you may not see in other parts of the unincorporated
And the
county.
streets, how are those?
Could use improvement,
Okay.
but again, not
Rhetorical, I'm
not
sure.
unexpected for an unincorporated area.
The county and the city have been in talks. Have they talked to you about that?
Briefly, there may be more information that has occurred today that I have not received, but
Okay, maybe we can get those answered later on. I do have a lot of questions for the county and the city. So I do know that once you start improving this site here, they're going to be doing streets and roads for access to that improvement. So they'd be taking up some of the cost, I do believe, correct?
at least along Lodi Avenue and the frontage of the project.
I would say along
And the
Whitmore too.
Small portion of Whitmore, yeah.
How about we just have Mr. Romano come up and start this off, and then let's see if he answers some of your questions, and then we'll go forward? Will that
I'd
help?
like the staff to do it. I don't mind.
I
Thank
got
you, Chairperson Bublak, members of the commission. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of G3 Enterprises and Dot Foods, great clients I'm proud to represent. Dot Foods actually owns about the north half of this area. They acquired that property a number of years ago for an expansion project and actually started the annexation project and then stopped over this very issue. And that's frustrating, but that's the reality of the situation. When G3 talked to me about acquiring the south half of this area, they were running out of area. They needed to be able to expand. This is immediately adjacent to their campus. We had conversations with the city of Modesto, and while we understand LAFCO's desire to take care of complete islands when they can, sometimes they can't, and reducing islands is certainly a positive way to proceed. These businesses have focused on this area. They reside in this area. and they want to proceed forward with development. It's important to know that this is an island now. Those discussions have occurred in the past. They are occurring now. They will continue to occur, whether it's a 91-acre island or a 66-acre island. Bottom line is city and county need to get together, have these discussions, and resolve those issues. But for my clients to be held up for that as they're trying to plan their future growth is difficult. You know, I understand the county's concern. This is LAFCO. This is not the county. You sit as LAFCO members, you make determinations, and we really feel like either slowing this down or conditioning this on, as Mr. Camarena said, how this delay would make annexation and development of this property dependent on the city and county reaching agreement. We think that that is unfair. The bottom line is that reducing the size of islands is a good thing. The annexation will allow existing businesses in Stanislaus County to continue to grow, benefiting the entire county. The city and the county can continue to discuss these islands, the process to improve and move islands from counties into the cities. This will in no way stop that process. LAFCO's conditioning of this annexation on future actions will substantially advantage the county in those discussions because the city will not be able to proceed until they reach agreement with the county. And so, you know, it's important, and as your staff mentioned to you, the city's policy is that islands, when they annex, need to be to a city standard. So if you ask the city to go back and just add the entire area, they have to violate their policies to do it. That's why this kind of dual discussion is really critical and really important. If we condition the annexation, it will substantially delay these landowners' ability to develop their property. So with that said, and on behalf of G3 and Dot Foods, we respectfully request that LAFCO select option A, that you approve the annexation as submitted, that you allow these businesses to expand, and that you allow the city and the county to continue those discussions that will continue to occur about how we improve those areas. So we think that that is fair, that is appropriate. We don't think what we brought before you today is not in the best interest of the cities, in the best interest of the county, and in no way precludes resolution of these difficult issues that have been discussed for many, many years and will continue to be discussed on an island-by-island basis. So with that, I'm prepared to answer any questions.
All right, questions from Mr. Munn?
Can I just ask what your timeline is as far as when people would be prepared to break ground? Where are they in the process? Do they have plans drawn up? Is it?
So I don't believe they have plans drawn up. I know for G3, they just started their next warehouse on the corner of Morgan and Whitmore. And so as they build that, they're going to immediately move their attention to this site. So I didn't ask them if they're going to start their plans in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, but they're watching and they want to know when they can kick off. They try to plan ahead because as they're building these buildings and they're getting occupied, they need to move. Dot Foods actually did not want to participate initially because they felt like the experience they had before and what they dealt with was very frustrating. They weren't confident in the process. They weren't confident that they would be able to get through this process. It never made it to LAFCO. But we reached out to them and we asked them to join. We know they already own the property. They have not told me what their long-term plans are. So I can only speak for G3, but I know that Dot Foods had retracted from this site before just because of these types of concerns.
Thank you.
Other questions for?
What is the amount that they're going to invest?
Ooh, I wish with the price of everything going up
No,
today,
just
who knows?
comparable.
Probably 200,000 square feet. If it's a couple $100 a square foot in value for a commercial building, I'm going to do really bad math. Is that 4 million or 40 million? 4 million. And that's just building the building, right? And you've got street frontage improvements on Whitmore, and they've got to build the road next to it, and they've got to do engineering and design, and so I'm not sure what these tilt-up warehouse buildings cost, but I know that they're not cheap. And I'm making a size assumption based upon 15 acres. So.
You mentioned the discussion between the city and the county. How long has this been going on?
I mean, I know that these discussions regarding island annexations have been going on for many years. With respect to this project, I know over the last few months, because I've just heard, I've not participated in them. It is a city-county issue.
We'll ask
the
the representatives directly. Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Romano. All right, who would like to speak next from the public? Jalen?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. It's been actually a very long time since I've spoken before a LAFCO Commission, and generally I think that's a good thing. It's typically people bringing jobs or housing to our area, which is a good thing. We certainly, before LAFCO, want to consider orderly and logical growth. We certainly think this is largely an infill site, but as was evidenced in the presentation, of course, we need to consider the islands. This is something that we know the county is taking very seriously, the city is taking very seriously. We were on a joint tour of some county islands with Congressman Harder very recently. We're putting some stock behind this issue. In this case, as was referenced by Dave Romano previously, the city and county will continue to discuss to try to get this age-old problem resolved. It does require money and some coordination. Unfortunately, we were just not quite able to get there when the application was submitted. I think it was early this year or late last year. We did reach out to county staff. At that time, I think the county islands were viewed through a slightly different lens late in our process for this application, when the county really started looking at county islands with some, perhaps stimulus monies available. There was a new lens, and we just couldn't quite get to the end of the line. And, should we, I guess the question for the commission is, should we hold up a potential development to allow or to provide the opportunity for the city and the county to coordinate? So I'll leave it that in terms of a presentation. Be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
How much in the improvements will the project pay?
So we have some estimates, and I know the county has some newer estimates. It is around the 4.5, maybe a little north of that, $1 million total infrastructure costs needed to improve up to city standards the entire county island area. We think, based on our estimates from about 2016, that the developer would pay about 1.3 million of that. So that leaves
3.2.
Yeah, a little north of 3 million. Let me just, I think that's those are the right numbers. They're in the ballpark.
So that'd make it easier for negotiations on money between the county and the city, with the development taking some of that off the burden of both off the county. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Berrigan?
Yeah, how many jobs do you project this project generating?
I don't have that number. I don't know if Dave has that number.
Probably a significant amount of jobs.
Yeah. In the high double digits, yeah. Triple digits, perhaps. Maybe more.
Any other questions, Bob? Thank you.
Okay.
Why didn't they ask that before they got here?
Raul?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the LAFCO Commission. Raul Mendez, Stanislaus County Assistant Executive Officer. Just, wanted to add to maybe Jalen's comments. The county and the city have been having discussions in the last couple months, really, the last couple weeks, to try and at least start conversations about how we can partner to develop kind of a financing plan for the entire area. Obviously, we don't have anything definitive as of this point, just a willingness to have conversation. I can share with you, and as you may have read in the paper, Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors recently had significant conversation about how to utilize some of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. One of the items that was specifically identified by staff and supported by the board was work in the urban pockets in your unincorporated communities of the county, specifically around incorporated cities. So Modesto, Ceres, Riverbank, Turlock, to name a few of the cities. So this is an opportunity to maybe have a broader conversation, certainly understand some of the challenges that the applicant is facing. I guess from the county's perspective, this creates a unique opportunity to kind of move the needle, I guess, on this issue that's been part of our community for a number of years. Certainly look forward to working with the city in any regard, regardless of what happens here this evening. And I think there's just a commitment to do more work with all the cities that have unincorporated pockets in and around their jurisdictions. As a former city manager, I understand some of the dynamics at play here. Wanted to kind of present the county's position, and then just going forward, look forward to working with the city jurisdictions, LAFCO, as we try to tackle this issue together. Happy to answer any questions any of the commissioners may have.
Questions for Mr. Mendez?
Is there a priority list on your islands?
So that work is still in progress. We don't have a list of priority areas yet. We've identified, I believe, 40 plus so pockets, and our Public Works Department has identified some estimated costs based on some work that was done back in 2019. We're sharpening our pencils. Obviously, now that we know that ARPA funds are coming our way, we want to have a better sense of what those expenses are, or what those infrastructure costs would be. But certainly we don't have a list of priority. I think that's one of the things we will be developing in a very open and transparent process, working with those communities. But to be honest, even though you develop a list of priorities, there's probably going to be instances like what you have today that just provide a unique opportunity to address, addressing an urban pocket, even outside of that list of priorities. So I think that's kind of the unique situation you have here today. Not the perfect or the best candidate, maybe, but certainly an opportunity nonetheless to have conversation, and appreciate the discussion, staff's recommendation, which obviously we're supportive of, but ultimately it's your decision to determine what's best for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Romano's got a second thought. Cleanup?
I never want to leave bad information, and so I checked, because I know what certain things cost to get built, but I was about $50 a square foot to build a tilt-up building, so I was 4 times too high. But then I did the math, and 200,000 times $50 is 10 million. So I just wanted to kind of get, so that's kind of an idea of scope and scale. And Commissioner Berryhill, these are interesting projects regarding job creation, right? So you go to just a big warehouse that does nothing but a few guys in a forklift, and maybe you're generating 2, 3, 4 jobs per acre. So a project like just the G3 side of this could be 30, 40 jobs. But also they just attracted Integra that does, it's kind of like the old trust plants, but it's all computerized, and they actually completely build like walls and floors and houses and everything on site, and then they just take it right to the job. They assemble a whole house in like a day or two, and they move that to one of these buildings over by Morgan Road, and they're pretty job intensive. So maybe things like that, you get to 15 to 20 jobs maybe per acre, and then you're talking about 200 or 300 jobs. So it's really a matter, and sometimes you just get a mix of the space has half of one and half of the other. So I just wanted to kind of expand a little bit on those two things for you. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in public?
I would just throw my 2 cents worth. We created an island last meeting. Maybe we need to take one away this meeting.
Yes. All right, I will close public participation and bring it back for conversation.
So, go ahead. You okay with me going?
Feel free.
The senior member, the old guy. So I had a good conversation with Mr. Romano a couple days ago, and I want you to know that whether it created 5 jobs or 500 jobs, there are 5 jobs, right? So I don't look at it, I see, and we know this is progress. In our conversation, I articulated the issue I have generally, and it wasn't about, I voted against creating the island. This is an opportunity, and I don't want it to be a lost opportunity, because if we can't get an island that requires no services whatsoever, to become a part of the city, then we're going to struggle mightily trying to get a housing tract, Glen, across the street. And the Board of Supervisors had set aside $50 million. The thing is, I don't want, I don't want G3 or DOT to get caught up in anything, but I've always found that everyone reacts in government better when there's pressure on them. I rode out with Mayor Zawalin, and we went just to that neighborhood right across the street, Caddy Corner. I know Raul was with us, and we're asking for money from the federal government to try and get rid of unincorporated islands. And the $50 million that we've set aside, or that we think we're going to set aside, I don't ever want to speak for the board, but it's about a $450 million cost for the unincorporated islands, and that doesn't include bringing our unincorporated communities like Keys and Denair, and that's about another $250 million. So the task is daunting, and this is the easiest one because there are no requirements for service. There's sewer and water in there. I agree, there's blacktop sidewalks, walkways, which aren't great. I drove through there today. There's no lighting district. I thought there might be some lights. But it's not, and from the, and I'm just saying this, but I'm not trying to speak on the county's perspective, but there's no disadvantage to allowing this today to the county. It's probably advantageous in reality. But if right now, between the ARPA funds and something else, if we sit down and hammer out what is right, and I think that this isn't a long conversation about getting actual estimates, I think we get it done in a time frame that doesn't harm G3. I think we can do it. And again, if this went beyond 60 days, I would turn around and come back and we would just move forward. But I think having some pressure on us is the right thing to do, because just because of what I see as the ease of getting this together. I am in favor of item 1B, but only for a fairly short timeline. This is not about leveraging, this is about forcing us to have a conversation, because as I hear both sides saying we're having a conversation, I know we're not having a conversation, because I ask all the time, what are we doing, what are we doing? Because it's ripe, and we just haven't done, and the counties is responsible and the cities is responsible. We just need to sit down and hammer this out and move forward, create jobs, again, whether it's 5 or 500, this is the way I feel. So I kind of liken this to what we did last week. I don't want to create an island, although that island I know is going to be annexed in the city. I'm very confident. This one, if we don't get it this time, I'm not sure. We may be talking about this 20 or 30 years from now.
I think my mic's working.
Working now.
Okay, there we go. Now we got it. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for the presentation, everything you guys have done. So I guess I have just a little bit different spin on it here, and maybe we can get there, I'm not sure. But, the original letter that the county issued back to the city, I think it was back in October, another one in April, and then it sounds like it really goes back to Dot Foods, even further back that this issue has been discussed between the city and the county, trying to work this out. That sounds like that goes years back. The county, we have recently, as a result of these ARPA funds, set aside, $50 million to go towards these pockets. But in my mind, and again, this is just me speaking, I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, and I guess this will come up further along, maybe if we have to talk about it more, but I'm thinking residential pockets is my concern, is where we really need to eliminate residential pockets, because that's where really the public safety is involved, and we're talking sewer, water, and curbs, gutters, and sidewalks, and in my mind, that's what I thought. Okay, great, we're going to do this, and it's going to help our disadvantaged communities with regard to like health issues, basically, which is what a lot of these county pocket issues are. People on septic tanks and trying to get them off their wells and get them into city water, treated water. So that's what as I look at that, I know we are on a push for that. I get that. But I look at that, our focus, and I hope it is, it's anyway, again, I don't want to speak for fellow supervisors, but that we're concentrating on residential areas for these pockets, not commercial, business industrial areas. So that's how I kind of look like that. And then I guess I'm concerned that we're going to end up holding this project ransom again. And I know that we say, well, we'll work this thing out, and I appreciate, Vito, what you say, 60 days. You know, I guess the only way I could go for 1B is if we had 60 days in there, in 1B, is that if this is not worked out between the city and the county within 60 days, then we bring this back before us at our next meeting, and this thing comes before us again to be approved.
Okay with that. Just
Yeah, because I just can't, I guess I just don't have the confidence that we're going to be able to work it out. You know, we continue to have these fights that go on, you know, seems like year after year. And so, you know, I'm all for 1A, and the only way I could get to 1B is if we had a drop-dead date in there, that this comes back to us and says, okay, we've worked it out, and the rest of it's going to be annexed, and we're moving on, and this won't hold up G3 at all. I mean, 60 days I don't think would hold up G3. I'm sure that they'll get on this thing, Dave. I'm sure they're going to jump on this thing as soon as they can. Knowing G3 and how they work, I'm sure it's not going to take long for them to get going. And so I don't want us to be any part of holding that up.
Option 3 then is to continue this to a date certain is better than.
Well, yeah, or that, we come back to our next, well, that's 30 days, our next meeting.
Well, we would do probably July 28th, be closer to 60 days. You could continue it to that, rather than making a decision and potentially
Yeah.
revising the condition in a way that we haven't reviewed.
I'm in agreement with that. I think that the hang-up is not, I think there's more good to be done than standard, right? I think that's the whole object on the housing, and you know, this isn't a negotiation up here, but I think it can be done.
Okay. Well, let's see what everybody else thinks, and then we'll see where we go.
I'm leaning towards 1A, and the reason for that is that, first off, you're going to have industry in there that will be providing improvements right off the bat that won't be in the negotiations. If you take 1A off the table, I know you're going to say for a short period of time, but I have seen in short period of times that businesses say, well, I'm going to go elsewhere. And Riverbank has options. I'm not proposing that, but you know, there are options out there. And once you delay an opportunity, you may lose that opportunity and you'll never get it back. Dot Foods was one of them. We lost that. We don't want to lose this one. And if they're going to provide, your estimate was $1.3 million, that reduces now your negotiation between the county for that entire area, which is now reduced to $3.2 million. Okay, that's something a lot easier to achieve. Delaying it. Sarah, can you tell me about the protest in that area?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was thinking the same thing. Where do we stand on the other property owners? Is there any
Right. So
what's
that
in the way?
was one of the reasons the condition as proposed would be that they would need to just submit an application for it. We wouldn't make it hinged upon the outcome of a potential protest in the rest of the area. The potential protest in the rest of the area, if it was taken by itself, is going to be probably based on land value, because it's an uninhabited annexation. So the property owners would be voting, potentially protesting on whether or not the annexation goes through for the remainder of the area. But as written, you know, approving it with a condition for another application only relies on that application being submitted and not the outcome of it. Yeah. So what I'm saying is there is a protest. There would be a protest on the remainder, because as it is right now with just the two properties, those two property owners are in favor and have consented, so there's no protest for them, but there would be a protest for the remaining area.
Well, then, we could even change that further, that they submit an application, and in 60 days, if the county and city hasn't received, county and the city have not come to an agreement, and the protests are not seen to be materializing, then the city's payment will be accepted, because there's an application fee, correct?
Right. what I suspect is, so if the commission were to approve tonight with a condition that the city comes back with another application, I would suspect that the city would have to go back to their city council for a resolution of application. I would also suspect that if there is an agreement between the city and county, that the board of supervisors would have an item to approve as well. So that would be at least, I mean, 60 days is probably a
6 months? No,
Well, I mean-
6 months.
depending on how each one of them would accelerate this process, 60 days I would think would probably be the soonest it would happen, you know, that
And then it
rather
has to
than
get
the-
on our agenda, which is,
It wouldn't necessarily have to get on our agenda if it was approved already by this commission, contingent upon them making another application. As soon as they make another application, we could record the first annexation.
I'm just thinking as a city, why would
Yeah.
I want to put a condition like that on me without any prospect of resolution?
And that's the other reason why continuance may have a benefit in that, you know, you give them 60 days to see what they can work out. If they come back and say that, no, absolutely nothing could be worked out in 60 days, then the commission could say, you know, well, we'll just approve it as submitted, or you could go from there. But it's kind of dependent on if the commission is confident that 60 days will matter or will
For the
produce any
county, will
results.
60 days matter? For the city, will 60 days matter?
It's hard to say on that.
I don't understand, I don't know. Yes or no?
So we are great partners with the county and other cities. But candidly, from the city standpoint, you know, this is an issue that needs to be resolved one way or another. I think even the county would recognize it's not necessarily fair for a city to take on property that's been developed many years, that doesn't have the necessary infrastructure, and put that burden on the city. And so, you know, I can say that we've had high-level meetings very recently, and it appeared that the priority for funding county pockets wasn't in non-residential areas. And so there was kind of an amicable parting at that time. So, you know, 30, 60 days may not mean a lot to the city. It will certainly mean a lot to Dot Foods and G3. And then it's, you know, it's really, where does the county want to prioritize their funding would be the city's take on that question specifically.
I can see there's a lot of lifting to do just to even get the talks going for the 60-plus acres.
Right.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. From my standpoint, I would just say that, from a city standpoint, that I know that our staff, 60 days is improbable. 120 days would probably be difficult to achieve as well. Our agendas are so limited and set up in time, and as much as we would want it, I don't know that it would happen. I think there's a great faith relationship between the county and the city to finish it, but at the end of the day, the cost of to do 1A right this minute is going to exponentially go up probably each month to build it, and I don't think that's right to impose that upon them as well.
You know, I'm in favor of option 1A. And the reason being is this here whole island thing has been going on for a long time. As far as with cities and going back to my many years as a council member in the city of Ceres. We had annexations, and through the downturn, we were having to take in the Collins Road area, which was Maple Glen. And through that process, obviously it wasn't very feasible. I can see the residential areas being a major problem for these islands, and for the county to just have the cities just take them over would be great, but they understand, I know, that there's a lot to that, and the money that it's going to take to bring these annexations and islands up to standards is an enormous amount. And so I think it's more of than just this one project. I think this has to be addressed. And, you know, I don't want to address it on this one project. I think it's an infill project. I don't see it, you know, being, you know, in the middle of something and leaving an island on each side of it. It's kind of just going right on out the Crow's Landing Road. So I think the infill fits perfect for this. If it was residential, maybe we'd have a little more conversation, but I think it's important that this conversation takes place for LAFCO and for the county and cities to come together and figure out a mechanism to fund some of these islands, because it's, you know, it's a great amount of money. And I think, you know, both sides recognize that. So with that said, I would be in favor of option 1B, or 1A, excuse me.
Any more dialogue? Okay, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We'll go back to it.
I just want to, can we go before we go to a motion? I want to look to Dave. Dave, I don't know if you can come up one more time?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
And
We'll put him on the hot.
I just want to see your thoughts on
I was hoping you wouldn't.
sorry. That's why you make the big bucks.
That's why I have to, you know, explain to my clients, you know, that I got them to the threshold and know it's just 60 days, and how do I know that's just 60 days? It doesn't turn into 60 days again, and we get up there 60 days, and the county's like, you know, the city didn't negotiate in good faith, and the city's like, well, the county wasn't negotiating in good faith, and we didn't, you know, and you're kind of faced with the same thing. So the world won't come to an end in 60 days. They'll look at it and they'll make decisions over the next 60 days. I'm going to have to judge with them, you know, the reality of this happening. I think, you know, they've pressed me and pressed me and pressed me to get this done. They weren't happy with this date. At the same time, they can make a business decision to do a little bit of planning on the hope that this gets done in 2 months. But, you know, I don't have them here, nor would I speak for them that 60 days is either to tell you it's a problem for them or it's not a problem for them. It's just that they've committed to this, they wanted to get this done. And so, you know, I've said nothing, right? Was that good? Was that like 2 minutes of nothing?
Could you be more
Nothing.
evasive?
Could I have been any more evasive? The attorney's just laughing. He's like, oh, you said nothing, dude. That was so good.
Just to follow on that, Dave, you didn't discuss when the LAFCO,
You know,
agenda came out, you didn't say, hey, these are alternatives, what can you live with?
we discussed them, but, you know, when we discussed them, so here was the alternative, right? So option 1B was delay it until there's a resolution. And that is certainly not acceptable, because there was no specific timeline on that resolution. When I talked to Supervisor Chiesa a little bit about it, and I appreciate his time, you know, I talked about 30 days, and I mentioned to my guys, you know, I mean, if somebody can talk about it in 30 days, but now it's 60, and now it's extending out, and so, you know, if we came back in a month, but I understand that a resolution, like you said, Mayor, has to go to the board, and then it has to go to the city council, and there has to be approval of it. And so I have the same kind of concern about 60 days, is that 60 days we might show up and say, we're really close and we think we have a resolution, we just have to go to our respective boards, and yes, we are moving the ball down the road. And so the world won't come to an end if you very specifically say 60 days and we come back here and we're going to move this thing forward in 60 days if there's no resolution. Certainly from the client's perspective, option 1A is one best, so I put it back on you, Supervisor, and you're just going to have to struggle through that.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Can we still
Thank
have
you.
more discussion?
Oh, did you want more discussion?
I do.
Oh, okay.
For 1B, approve the proposal conditioned upon, I don't see how we're going to change that based on the resolution to a 60-day yay or nay.
No.
So
Once-
we
once-
can't agree to that.
So once the commission acts upon it, you wouldn't be able to come back in 60 days and re-act on it. It would have to be a continuance to 60 days and then the decision be made.
Okay.
Okay,
So 1B's out then.
okay.
So our options are 1A and 3.
Just one more comment. I guess I just can't get there if, like I said, two things. One is the county pocket things. I really am, think that we're centric towards residential and to hold this up because of that, which is, I have a hard time with that. And I just don't have the confidence that we're going to get there. And this is going to go on for a long time. And in the meantime, this project sits and waits. So I just can't, I just can't support 1B, I guess. I'm sorry, that's just my spot where I'm at.
Okay, with that, I'd move application number 2021-2 for approval of option 1A.
All right, there's a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay.
That would be me again.
It is approved with 4-1. Thank you.
And I appreciate that, Vito. I really do.
Stick with it.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. Moving on, final LAFCO budget for fiscal year 21-22.
Okay. I'm going to make this one really brief.
And this isn't a project.
Well, let them. I'll let them. Ready?
See you, Manny.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's do the budget.
So before you is the final LAFCO budget for fiscal year 21-22. You've already approved the proposed budget on April 28th, and there are no adjustments recommended for the final budget. This is the final budget as proposed, same as the proposed budget, overall with an increase of 4%. And staff is recommending your approval tonight. And with that approval, we will forward the information to the county auditor to apportion the expenses.
All right, any questions for staff? All right, open it to public. Anyone wishing to speak in regard to the final budget of the next year? Close public comment, bring it back. What is the will of the commission?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second?
And a lot of seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Unanimous. Thank you for that. No other business. Commissioner comments?
Just a quick one. Over the course of the year, Sarah, I'd like you to take a look, whether it's formally or informally, to comparable positions for other, such as StanCog, making sure that we support the staff here, which I believe is the most important board in the county, and that we are making sure that we have a balanced approach to you and your staff. Whether it's, if it's formal, then we're going to need to change the budget.
All right, any other? All right, then what is the will of commission? We've already made it? I'm
There's other
sorry.
comments.
No, I'm sorry. I just lost it.
You can't talk to me
I
about
can't
it.
talk to you anymore. All right, additional matters, discussion. I have non-executive officers report. Thank you.
So we just completed the protest hearing for the Salida storm drain project that the commission had approved. And that protest only received 6 protests, so the commission's decision was upheld on that item. We're also preparing for a protest hearing for the Northwest Newman annexation that the commission approved. Staff recommends canceling the June meeting. We don't have any public hearings scheduled, but we are working on the protest hearings that I spoke of. That would make our next meeting July 28th.
Outstanding. All in favor of adjournment? Aye.
Aye.
Bye, thank you.
Jeff Chair.